for $14.75 an hour. His wife, Joyce, 66, prepares for her workday, making $14 an hour as a full-time legal administrator.
It's not really a retirement.
What is it?
It's working every day.
The Gessicks came out of retirement not because they wanted to, but because they had to, and are among the 11 million Americans, 1 in 5 over 65, who are still working.
It's hard, 77, still busting my butt.
So I call it the work, retire, repeat syndrome.
Labor economist Teresa Ghilarducci says work is the new retirement.
More than half of the people who are retired right now do not have enough money to be retired.
Who's to blame for all of this?
I blame policymakers who experimented with our retirement system 40 years ago, and they are not saying the experiment failed.
That experiment is what we know today as the 401k, named after part of a 1978 law that offered companies an alternative to the traditional pension plan.
So what happened back in the day is that people work for a union, work for a company. If you do 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever that time frame is, you work for them for the best years of your life. They extend a pension to you for the rest of your life. So you give them the best working years of life, they in turn take care of you for the rest of your life, okay? So for example, in the military, if I was to retire in the military, I would be able to retire at 37 years old. Why? Because I got in when I was 17 years old, do 20 years in the military, in the Marine Corps, I'm retired at 37 years old. My retirement check would have been about $1,500 to $2,000 a month for the rest of my life after giving 20 years of my life to Uncle Sam, assuming that my head, my body, my spirit, my mental state, my physical body is still put together. In exchange, I'd get a check for $1,500 to $2,000 a month for the rest of my life. Now, I did the math, I said it wasn't worth it. Why? Because I stumbled across entrepreneurship in the late 1990s. I got involved in the insurance business in the early 2000s. I realized what my time was worth. I realized what I was worth. And I wasn't willing to reduce myself to what the military was paying me because my first obligation at this point is being a father, not being a Marine. I'll always be a Marine, but my first priority after having kids is to be a father first. That's my priority. I'm not trying to push that on anybody else. But to me, my value system, I got to take care of my family. And take care of my family means being present, to be a provider, to be a protector, but being here, not over some foreign country for 6 months to 12 months a year. And they can care less about who I am, what I do, and welfare of my family back home in the States. So I chose my family over brotherhood, over the guilt trip of not being deployed with my brothers and sisters to combat overseas. I got over that very quickly. Some people don't. Some veterans don't. Their identity is in uniform. My identity, for me, was in Christ. My identity was God. My identity was my last name and the stewardship responsibility I had to have these children that I'm responsible for raising. That's my reality. And so when I decided to take a look at different things, I forgone my 8 years in the military and I have nothing to show for outside the salary that the military paid me for 8 years. I have no pension. I have no retirement account. I bet on me. And that bet paid off. Lots. Tons. Let me give you an example. Military salary for E5 in 1999. Okay, let's take a look at this. In 1999, a military E5, that's me, a sergeant, with at least 6 years of service, pay increased to 1614. That was me. So what's 1614? People don't believe me when I say this. What's 1614 divided by 2, assuming this is before tax? 1614 divided by 2 is approximately $807 every 2 weeks. That was my reality. That was my military paycheck. So if everybody talking about it's so much harder to buy a house today, guys, I made ends meet knowing that my reality, my identity was making $800 every 2 weeks. That was me. I just chose to improve. That's a funny thing about capitalism. That's a funny thing about free enterprise. I'm free. I'm free to think as big or small as I want to think. And I can't complain on the results I don't have for the money I don't have for the lack of self-improvement or the work I was willing to do. I couldn't blame anybody else but me. That's what I love about entrepreneurship. You want to blame somebody? Blame you. Look at the man or the woman in the mirror and improve. If you don't like the reflection, improve. And so that was my reality, making $800 every 2 weeks. People, oh man, it's so awesome for you to be a millionaire. That was my reality. $850 every 2 weeks. And I got in my first check. How many guys hire first check goes to rent? I used to be that way until I found ways to level up. Now, it didn't happen overnight. It took me years to do it. But I knew the mindset that where I was at today is not where I'm going to be 4 or 5 years from now because I was willing to work, improve, and to grow. Because today, nothing's in your way. The only thing that's in your way today is your excuses and your inability to want to change and to develop and find systems and processes and expand your bandwidth. So therefore you can get out of life what you expected for the work proportion that you put in. And people don't want to suck shit for 4 or 5 years. People don't want to eat dirt for 4 or 5 years. But that's the reality of building your dreams. It's the reality of building a business. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be the road that's well-traveled. It's not a smooth road either. It's a road less traveled. And most of the time, if you don't have the opportunity to come from a rich family and you want to be rich, great. Then a rich family ought to come out of you.